So good morning, everybody. Welcome to our coffee chat. Thank you for being patient through the Zoom issues this morning. Welcome to technology in the beginning of the school year, right? So this morning we have one of our faculty, Tim Langford, who is also, I'll let him tell a little bit more about himself, but he's also a principal and he's a whiz at Google in my eyes. And so he's here today to share with us some tips and tricks and ways of using Google in classrooms. And then he'll be here till about 11 o'clock. And then afterwards, I thought we could spend time sharing out how you use technology, Google, some of those things that you've been finding interesting to build into classes, or if you have any need for help with technology, putting that out there, and we could support one another if we have any understanding of how to use that technology. And if not, also informing us for what you would like in future coffee chats, because we can always build in future opportunities to learn about other things as well. So with that being said, I'm not going to speak more than what I should and turn it over to Tim. Let me make sure I made you a co-host. So there you go, Tim. So I don't know if you want to share screens but I will turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Tim Langford. This is my, it's all gone by so fast, the dates are blurred, but I think this is my third semester at Ventura College. I'm teaching Introduction into Elementary Education. I am currently an elementary school principal. I have been in the field, serving in the field for over 25 years, both as a classroom teacher, a coordinator, an administrator, and then now taking on this role as an adjunct for elementary ed. So Rachel had asked me to just share some tips and tricks for Google. I don't know if I'm necessarily an expert, but I do use it a lot. And I will tell you, so the first thing is when I thought about just in terms of what your needs may be, it really came down to, I work with things that just makes my life easier. I really hate a lot of paper. So I try to do everything possible to eliminate the need for paper in my life. So as I've learned Canvas over the past semester, I have also looked at ways that I can integrate different things into with Canvas. Again, just to make my life easier. So I'm just going to share a few things that hopefully that you will find useful. If at any point you have a question, please don't hesitate just to stop me and say, hey, Tim, can you go back over this? And I'll be more than happy to do it. So I am going to begin just by sharing my screen. And I'm at work, so I'm hoping that I don't get interrupted. My day, you know how a principal's life is, my day, my door is closed, so hopefully no one comes knocking, but just a disclaimer, if you will. But I will share my screen, and I'm gonna share just what I have, and I'm gonna start with Google Drive, if you will. So can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes. So let me just tell you how I use Google Drive. I use it as more or less my filing system in terms of just where I want to place information for myself and also for the staff. So if you think of your old, the filing system of days old, you want to look at how do you take and make things, place them in a file for whatever it is you need. And so the filing system that you may use, again, it's just dependent upon what your needs are in terms of structure. And within Google Drive, and I will tell you, so I'm proficient also with Microsoft. I've used Dropbox, I've used other resources, but I have come, I think probably within the last 4 years, to really start using Google Drive as a place to store all of my resources and information. I actually use it much more than even Microsoft OneDrive. The reason is simple. The reason is because I find that Google, in terms of sharing documents and share in terms of collaborating, it is just much easier than some of the other resources. You can do it with OneDrive, or you can do it with other resources, but I find that Google Drive really does a very nice job in terms of doing that. So within my staff, we have a couple things, and I'll take you to just one of the folders here. We are at my elementary school site, we are a professional learning community. And we offer opportunities for our staff to come together and really work. So I have a Wiley Canyon, which is the name of my school, Wiley Canyon School-Wide Professional Learning Community Shared Drive. And within that shared drive, I actually have set up folders for the things that we need here at the school: calendar, schedule, any site, district information, student support. So other folders that we need. So here's the key. I don't make a lot of folders, but I do make a lot of subfolders, right? You can index things within your computer, so you can index a file, which label it. But sometimes, and if you're like me, I'm getting older, I'm over 50 now, I can't remember sometimes how I labeled something. So I try to have key folders where I know that if something regarding parent information, I go right to parent information, and then I can pull up whatever documents I need there. So I do use Google Drive as a way to kind of to manage all of my folders. So how would you use this if you haven't started, or if you wanted to begin? Usually it's very simple. Within Google Drive, it's either file upload, so whatever's in your documents, or whatever on your computer, file upload, or you can do a folder upload. So if you have folders within on your computer that you filed things over the years for your classes, then you can do a folder upload. So that is probably the best way. So let's do that now. So if I was to create a folder, and let's just say just Ventura College. Create, and then within that folder, then I can start, and then I can begin to upload any information that is on my desktop. So all of these files here, if I wanted to upload everything that was on my computer into Ventura College and so forth. So that would be a way to begin in terms of using Google Drive. And then you'll begin to kind of break down things based on your specific needs. Is there a question? Okay, so with that, when you're looking at who do you want to designate a folder to, what I just did right now, I actually right click. So then it lets me know, what do I want to do with this information? I have a setting, there's a setting that's on my Google Drive. Go here. So if you click on settings, which is here at the top, there is an indicator which is convert uploads. So to make items within Google shareable or to make them editable, they have to be Google files. So anything that is uploaded into my Google Drive, I automatically convert it into a Google Doc. So if I have a Microsoft Word document, I'll convert it into a Google Doc. If I have a PowerPoint, I'll convert it into a Google slide. Again, the purpose for that is if I want to make something to where it can be edited, then you want to have it as a Google file. So that is the one thing about Google. Google plays nice with others, but if you want to edit and if you want to work with different files, then it needs to become a Google file. So a Google Doc, a Google Sheets from Excel, etc. So that is the one indicator, and I would say that if you are planning to use Google Drive and you want to begin to upload your documents, please make sure that you have this indicator checked to where it is done. So I have a raised hand.
Tim, I'm just wondering with the conversion to Google Docs, how does that then as far as the format, does the format stay the same? Is there a lot of messing up with the conversion from, say, a Word doc to a Google Doc?
Good question. So I find that it maintains a lot of um, the formatting from a Word doc. I find it to be easy. So let's do it. So and I'm going to open up. Something that I can share. Give me a second. Okay, so if I wanted to take this for example, so we're looking for this, so you're just wondering if the settings, if everything will stay the same. So school assignment, grade 6. So let me go back out of this. So again, if I'm uploading a file, so I'm going to look for that file. Let's see. And so I remember what I said before. I forget. I'm getting old. I can't remember how I label certain things. But the idea, yeah. Assignments. Sorry, give me 1 second.
No worries, Tim. We all have about 10,000 different files on our folders.
Well, let's just choose one. So this is an example. So it'll keep, and let me see if I can find that's the Word version of that. Let's see if I can. But it'll keep the formatting for the most part. There may be some times where you may have to make minor adjustments, but I will tell you, while I do use Google quite a bit, I still think Microsoft is the flagship. So I do have some shortcuts where I will actually create oftentimes within Microsoft. So that's the next kind of item. I will create sometimes in Microsoft and then upload to Google, okay? Because I find that formatting in Microsoft and so forth, even PowerPoints, it is much better. But again, remember what I stated earlier, it's that the collaboration and being able to edit and collaborate is much easier to me in Google than even OneDrive. So that's why I use it. So typically the formatting will stay the same, but I do format often in Microsoft and then I upload. And then I just keep everything that I need there. And then I do keep the original copy, which is a Word document, probably on my computer or hard drive someplace else. So chat, let me see. Did that answer your question? Or okay, I see you. So, but that does take me to the next point. So please remember, if you are someone who's a native user of Microsoft, you do not have to throw that away because you decide to move over to Google. Okay. Again, I would encourage you. There is no, with all these new applications that come out, I find that I don't always have the time to learn all the bells and whistles of every new application that's coming forth every day. But I do love technology to the point where I can take something that I'm familiar with and make it work with something new. So I would encourage you, again, if you have a document in Microsoft, a Word document, PowerPoint, go ahead and upload them. Convert them to a Google file, because if you share it with someone within Google, then you will be able to, you can edit that information, and it is easy to collaborate. I see another question. Can you download fonts somewhere? Sometimes the fonts in PowerPoint are taken out in Google Slides. Yes, I think, you know what, Chrome, so Google Chrome has a lot of extensions in terms of when you're actually looking at different fonts that you might want to use. And I'll look them up and I can share them with you in terms of if you want to use something specific with PowerPoint. But I have found that for me, and I'm pretty standard, it doesn't change too many things in terms of what I've used. I hope that answers your question. But I'll be happy to look up some different fonts. There's some extensions that are in the Chrome store that you could use that I think would be valuable. Okay, so that's it in terms of Drive. Again, here's the key to Drive. Don't try to create a lot of files. Have a few major files that you're going to use. Again, 2, 4, 6, 8. This is it. Then create subfolders within that. It'll just, again, for me, it just helps me organize, helps me think about, you know, where do I want to place items in the overall folder. So I have a professional development folder. Within professional development, I have things that have to do with curriculum, English language support documents, PLC. So my school plan is listed here. So I keep that information readily accessible. And if you see the naming parameters here, remember as I started, it's Wiley Canyon, PLC, then it moves to professional development. Then it will also move to other subfolders that you will have. So your naming parameters are always listed here at the top as you're moving through Google. Other ways that questions just in terms of OneDrive, and I'm just doing a quick overview, are other questions that you may have just in terms of really just organizing information. That's really what Google Drive is all about. I think I said OneDrive. Google Drive is really about organizing your documents, organizing your folders. It's an opportunity where you can share folders. You can create a shared drive. So I just right-clicked. So under shared drive, you can create a shared drive. Now this might be, and I'm not sure if Ventura has maybe an enterprise account or a business or a school account. The shared drives are only available for enterprise or education accounts. So I have this available as part of the district. So that might be something that you'll look for. And again, the benefit of that is that you are able to share this with colleagues, departments, and so forth. So you do have to have that. If it's shared drives, I don't believe are available for personal accounts. Okay, but you can still create folders, and you can share folders with other people who have Google accounts. Okay.
Tim,
but that would be the one thing.
Tim, Patty was asking if you could quickly talk through again how to transfer a file from Word to Google Drive.
Okay. Sorry. So if you go to New, I'm sorry, let me go. So let me go back up. So go back to My Drive here. So when you click New, you see the difference. So I was on Shared Drive before. Go to My Drive, click New, And then you have the options here. Option of uploading a file, option of uploading a folder. Okay, so when you click on file, it'll search for whatever is on your computer or whatever you have access to. So we have shared drives within our district. So if I wanted to find a document here, then I would find that document, and it could be a PDF, it could be a Word document. Let's see here. Let's look at this visual art unit. I think this was from one of the classes I had. Click on that, open the document, and then it would just start file upload. Okay, so this was a template that I use. Again, I created it in Word. Okay, and for the most part, it does keep your tables and so forth. Okay. Questions, and so you can do the same thing with a folder. So if you wanted to upload, so for example, if you within your classes, if you have a specific, I guess a unit that you'd like to upload at once, so you can do that. Again, I do keep that check mark because I like to convert them. But if there's an issue with the conversion, here's what I do. The other recommendation is keep it as a PDF because your PDFs will retain its formatting. Okay. Other questions with regards to Google Drive?
Deanna was asking if anybody is able to share with anyone with a Google account or others with access to the same shared drive, like coworkers only.
So with your shared drive, so if the college, for example, was to get to have an education account or enterprise account, it would be within that within the school community. If you have a personal, because ours is restricted, so everybody within our school district is only able to access it. So you can't access. The only exception to that, which I'm going to move to next, is Google Forms. So Google Forms, you can change the setting to where you can send a link to anyone outside of your community or your organization to open. So let's talk about so a couple of applications, we call this little waffle here. So again, I use Google Drive. Our school, we also use, we don't use Canvas here, we use Google Classroom as our learning management system here. So we use that. We also use, I do a lot with Google Forms and Google Sheets. So I can share with you just some opportunities that I take with Google Forms and how I use that to gather data. So let me see something that I could share with you. So, and I'm going to switch from my, so as you notice, I have a few Gmail accounts. So I'm gonna switch to my personal. I think last semester, I actually created a digital journal for students to record their practicum observations. So within that, I created a Google form. Let me see, actually, not that one. Hold on, let me do this. And I'll come back to, I'll explain what I just did. One of the great things about, let me just check out these names here. One of the great things about creating forms is that you can instantly make copies. So I didn't mean to show everybody's name here, but we'll go through it. So with the Practicum Journal, so our students had 45 hours of practicum observations that they needed to complete. And so for me, just to make my life easier, I needed a way to capture the information, capture their journal information, and gather some data. So what I did is I created a form. And creating the forms are pretty easy to do, and I'll walk you through it, but I'll just explain to you this example. So with the form, I just had the student's name. I had them capture the week of the observation, which is days of the week. So whatever days they were on school campuses. I asked them to record the total hours. And I set some restrictions in terms of hours. So, you couldn't record on one journal like 20 hours. You were limited. So I said the number had to be between 0 and 5. So I limited them to the amount of hours. If they did more, then they had to submit another journal. And that was just a parameter that I put in place. I wanted to know the school they were at, the teacher, grade level that they were observing. So this was all the information that I included. And then with the teaching, we have standards for the teaching profession. So as I had students observing in the classroom, I wanted them to align their observations to one of the standards, at least one or two of the standards, to make those connections. So if they were in the classroom, and they were writing something in their journal, I specifically wanted them to call out, well, how are you engaging and supporting all students in learning? How did that teacher do that? So that's what I wanted them to write about. Creating and maintaining effective environments for student learning. How did the teacher do that? So in your journal reflection, I wanted you to write about that, but I wanted you also to identify the specific standard that it was linked to. So then I had them identify subject. Then I specifically called out, based on the focus of your CSTP, and again, the CSTP, California standards, write your observation. And again, very specific in terms of what I wanted. Whole group, small group, was it one-on-one? What the teacher did, how the students responded. So they needed to call all of that out in their journals. So as you can tell, I got a lot of information over the course of that time. And so when you're putting together journals, and is everybody familiar with Google Forms, or who's not? How familiar is everyone with Google Forms? Because I'll walk you through that process. Okay.
Let's walk them through.
Okay.
And while you're setting it up, there are additional questions I see in chat box that we can go back to and make sure that they get answered before your time.
Okay.
So
let me see. Let me stop now. Let's see. Okay. So I think sharing with anyone, you can do that as long as they have a Google account. If you're working with an enterprise or with a school district or a community college district account, it should be limited to just within that organization. I can show you the check mark again. I'll come back to that. I understand that students can use Google Docs, Google translating to another language. Can you show that? Yes. I will tell you though, I actually use Word. I think Word does a better job with that. So I'll show you Google, but I'll show you, because if you use Word, I actually think Word does do a better job with that. If you're not on, if you're sharing from, it says if you're not on in an institutional drive, you can share with anyone, not just people within your organization. Yes, you can share with anyone. It's the shared drives that kind of will provide opportunities for like team or group collaboration, but you can always share a document with anyone as long as they have a Google account. That makes sense. Can we please share this resource, the EDU? Oh, yes, sure.
Renee
So
will
I'll
share.
share that.
Yeah, Tim, we just created a Canvas Commons for everybody who's teaching EDU in fall, just to give them different resources for both the 10-hour class and the 45-hour class. And so there's a person who's on right now who's brand new EDU faculty, and we're texting about how good your journal is. So if you're open to sharing, we've got a lot of
Oh my
people
Oh,
in
God.
yeah.
the state
Hello.
that would love
Yes,
this.
that was me. I was just texting Renee. My name is Janita, and I was like, oh my God, you were like God sent to me right now. It was, I almost wanted to hug you, but I can't. I wanted to hug you. I was like, oh my God. So I think it's wonderful. I know that we have these resources because we use them for, I usually use Google Forms for recruitment on new enrollment, but it never clicked to me, like Renata, you said, use them as a journal. Hello. So
Yes.
thank you so much. It's wonderful.
Well, and the fact that you tied the CSTPs into it is fantastic.
Yes,
I
yes.
taught EDU for 12 years, and I had those as separate things within class, and I'm looking at this going like, duh. And so, I mean, whenever we can take a best practice and, share it, it's awesome. So no pressure, but if you're willing, we have a lot of people who'd love it.
And Renee, I actually, because of Tim, I just said this in chat, because of Tim and his Practicum Journal, I just made one for my observation class. So my observation students are going to track some of their observations through that journal.
Well, and we might want to, when we start going into conferences coming in fall and presenting about the different COPs, maybe something like this could be shared as a best practice on even a larger scale. So we were just approved into CCC AOE. And so this is something that would be good to share if Tim is willing.
Sure. Sure. Be more than happy to.
Thank you.
Tim, one of the
So,
things that came up was, what if community college students don't have Google accounts, only a college email, and how do Google Docs work in Canvas?
so when I actually posted in Canvas, when I created the assignment, I would always just insert the link to Google, to this Google form. Because I've looked at and actually with.
I'm sorry,
Say it again?
I've used Google Forms on Canvas because I needed the students to pair them up in groups. And I had a Google form on Canvas and it didn't work. I had to do it outside of Canvas. I don't know why the systems are not liking each other. And I called my IT department and they told me that Canvas, for some reason, it wasn't supporting it. My students had to log out of Canvas and I had to email it to their school email so they can access it.
So I do think though within Canvas, so here's the embed code. So in Canvas, you can embed, and I haven't tried this, but when I was, I think I was working with Rachel had turned me on to the apps that were in Canvas, and I was actually looking at that, and I noticed that really Google Drive, it didn't really, our Google applications didn't really spell it out, but I was looking on YouTube, and I think you can take the embed code, and when you're creating an assignment in Canvas, where it says insert or embed a document or media, I think you can embed this form. Now you still have to come back to Google Forms to look at the data, but you can embed. So try the embed code. I think that would work. And again, just in terms of just creating these forms, you know what, here's a blank form. So you'll title it, let's just say. And then you start thinking about just the information that you want. One of the things, I do use sections in terms of how I want to lay things out. So I may just want, I don't know, student profile here. And then let's just say name or whatever information. Then I may start another section that has to do with school information. And then you add, so make sure that and visually, I mean, I guess you could actually just create the questions, but visually in terms of really sectioning, creating sections, I think that just helps the students to kind of know, here are the things that you specifically are calling out that they have to provide. So school information, for example, name of the school, you could have grade. And when you put grades, one of the things, there's an algorithm, I think, within Google that automatically will put some information. So it may, and I may put TK, I may, so K all the way through high school. It's whatever it is you want. One of the things that, and you have to decide, you have these options over here in terms of really using multiple choice, our check boxes, our drop down. You can use all of them, but I will tell you, when I'm gathering data, I like to be as specific as possible. So sometimes when you are connecting these forms, and I'm going to show you how I connect it to Google Sheets, it is better to have really clean data in terms of when you're selecting a grade, just select one grade. Or when you're selecting specific information, select one, and if you need to have a second question, then you can do that. I like that in terms of just how I gather data, and I'll show you why in just a couple of minutes. But in terms of just creating these forms, they're pretty straightforward. In terms of images, so if you want to upload an image, you have that option here. So here was add question. You can import questions, text. You can import an image. So if you want to do a Google image search on schools, let's just use this. You know, you can add images in there. Let's see. And I'm sorry, that's not what I wanted, but you can add an image like that. But in terms of your header, if you wanted to choose an image, let's see. That's what I wanted. So in your header, that's where you want to choose the image and kind of bring your form to life, if you will. So let me go back to my other form. Couple things. Again, so remember I said this was my head, this was my section header. Here's why I listed here. Again, I wanted days of the week. Notice what I did. It's a checkbox. So you can, with checkboxes, let's see here, you can check more than one. That's the difference, obviously, between that and multiple choice. School hours. Again, I do believe that you need to set parameters. Some people will put 50 hours if you let them. So set parameters in terms of what you want. And then for those of you, maybe you could help me, because I know that sometimes I think I need a better gauge sometimes in terms of hours, you know, but, you know, so if anybody has ideas about that, please share them with me. But I do set parameters to just keep it from just being out of control. Questions. Let's see. So going back to the questions of community college students have, so yeah, they'll just need to, they will have to have a Google account. I mean, you know, it's free. So just, you know, if you're using that, that is something that maybe it could be an ask of them. More information about the embed. So the embed, it does look like it will work. So here's the other thing in terms of Google. So when I actually go back to the original form. If you notice what's happening here, I will tell you this. It is good when you're working with Google, log out of all of your accounts and just kind of log into the one that you want to work with. Because sometimes you can, it'll throw you, it can kind of go back and forth. Just Something I've noticed. So this was my original Google form. So you have, as you can see, I have quite a few responses um, over the course of the semester. And so here's this data information, and it's messy. I didn't quite like that, so I actually used something, it's called Data Studio within Google to kind of disaggregate the data a little bit more. So you can connect it to a spreadsheet. And again, all of this information, you will need to connect it to a spreadsheet and Google Forms. And I'm happy to come back another time, actually because I use Google Forms quite a bit. I use Excel, but I think Google Forms actually makes things a lot easier. And I can share with you in another time, like pivot tables and how I use all that information. But remember what I was saying earlier about how to really keep things clean. So I do, this spreadsheet, I do go through it and just kind of make sure that everything is how I like it. Then I went into, Google has another application, it's called Data Studio. Let's see. And it's just something that I discovered probably a couple years ago. So that practicum information, I needed a way to pull that so that I could use it, because sometimes you'll get data overload. And so I created this, and this is in Data Studio, where I could actually look at, so I could see better how things were trending. So for example, I might want to, and I can disaggregate it by student. So if I looked at this particular student, she had 48 hours, and then I'd have all of her observation notes. So remember what I said, that you could only do so many. Here's the CSTP. Here is, so engaging and supporting all students in learning. Can everybody see this? So whole group activity, the students begin with calendar time where they sit on the rug and are student led with the help of the instructor, and et cetera. So she was explaining kind of what happened February 10th on this day and this time. So I would just go, and this is all the information or my documentation for just this student, right? So all of the time that she did her observation. So observation 1 could have been they could have observed in more than one class, on that day. So that could be for more the observations. Let's see. So for example, she had 2 observations on March 23rd. So pointed out what they did in the video. Actually, I think this was by the time we had COVID. COVID struck. So this is where they watched a video, and then I actually had them also record what they saw in the observation. Again, they had to tie it back to the standards and so forth. And this was just one way. The other thing that I noticed too, and you can put different graphs to represent kind of what you want to see. Let me see here. If I wanted to know, I'm trying to think. Oh, so for Jocelyn, I could also see kind of where most of her observations, what grade levels. And there was a point where we talked about that, I want there to be some balance in terms of the organization. So if you're observing in lower primary grades, maybe you need to have some experiences in upper elementary grade. So I do want you to look at that. I want you to look at more than just language arts. I need you to see some math and some science, and those types of things that I'd be looking for. So they had some art and PE, so I wanted others, a broad range of subject areas. Let me see someone else. Same thing here. So, you know, her observations took place in 4th, 6th, 1st grade. And so a pretty good range. So I could see, you know, what was taking place. Same thing. And throughout, because towards the end of the semester, you know, I had some folks kind of racing towards the end, trying to get their hours in. And I could actually go back to this and say, you know what, we had, you know, you only had so many hours. You know, some did, you know, more. But, you know, just because the videos added up, and actually, you know what, that's 97 because no one did 97 hours. It's because I chose 2 students. So, you know, you just have to look at how you're setting that up. So this was something else that I created. Now, how do I create this? I pulled this data from Google Sheets, right? So the Google Sheets, when you're setting up Data Studio, you connect it, and that's, I could spend some more time with you on another time. You connect that to the Google Sheets so that you can pull this data. And it took some playing around. I had to play around with it to really decide what information do I want. I think this semester I might do it a little differently, but again, I was still gonna have the form, whether we do something, and even if we're using videos, I'm gonna use the same form. I'm gonna capture this information. I'll watch how they're trending because I wanna know how many hours they are gathering, because you can't have, you know, 16 hours and it's December. So, you know, we have to, you know, I'd monitor that throughout the semester. Questions? So is the EDU class 100% observation? No, so the 45 hours is the observation. Oh, in terms of, are you meaning participating as working in the class?
I'm wondering if they're like, I mean, I know we're in COVID time, so things are a little bit different, but I'm wondering if the way you have the course written is if it's 45 hours of pure observation or if Ventura allows for observation and participation. I know when I first taught the class, I let it run for about a year where it was just, or maybe a little bit longer, where it was just observation. But then it, like as somebody who had been a classroom teacher, I was like, look, if somebody's like good already or has experience, like I want them to run a center or like work one-on-one with kids, or, you know, I wanted to get more help in the classroom and I thought like it would be more practical. So I eventually rewrote the class so it was 45 hours of observation and or participation. So if a student was ready to go, they could start getting in the classroom. And if somebody needed to observe the whole time, the way we wrote it, it allowed them to do whatever kind of the process they needed. And I'm just wondering what Ventura does.
I like that idea. You know what? I like that idea. It's right now. It is 100. It's a observation. It is observation. They weren't participating at least this past semester, but I do like that idea. And that might be something that we could look at, because I think that that's a great idea. I know, look, I know even at my campus where we've had student teachers, they actually start participating anyway. But, you know, so they might as well get hours for that. But I do think that
hours without working with the kids, you know what I mean?
So yes, but right now on paper, it is observation. It is observation, and I know that this semester, that's all I asked the students to do. We just said observe in the classroom, and left it at that. So okay, so and again, this is how I captured, as you saw with the spreadsheet and the form. You can use the form and it'll give you some graphics and some data, some pie charts and so forth. I just didn't like any of them. So I used Data Studio to actually disaggregate and pull out the data a little bit more. Okay. Questions about anything? Let's see. Probably the only other, and I don't know how much more time I have, but The only other thing that I use quite a bit from Google is Google. I do a lot with Google Sheets because I find. Oh, I'm sorry. Does the data from the journal forms go into Data Studio automatically? Once I have it set up, yes. So when students are filling out the forms, it goes to Google Sheets, and then the Data Studio, once I have it set up to pull certain information from those sheets, then yes. So that's how the hours would populate. That's how I would know in terms of the subject area and so forth. Okay. Let's see. So the only other thing that I could, or area that I could share in terms of that I do spend a lot of time with, I do find that, so Google Forms, Google Drive, Data Studio, and then I do a lot with just Google Sheets. Trying to see if I could.
Bobby is asking, what template did you use for that?
For this spreadsheet?
Bobby, I'm gonna have to rely on you.
Yeah, I was unmuting myself. Yeah, no, I just meant what Data Studio template did you use to set that up? Do you remember?
So let me go back. So in Data Studio, let's see.
I don't know if you just used a blank one and just did it yourself, or if you used one of the templates.
I did a, you know what? I did a blank one.
Yeah. Okay.
I did a blank one,
and then I often
from. So
Go
go ahead.
I was just saying sometimes it's easier just to use a blank.
Yeah, I use a blank one, and then I tell, you tell it which form that you want to pull it from, and
Right.
then I set up the parameters in terms of what I use. I want to say, let's see if I can get a, and again with Data Studio, I actually, for me, it was just something I recently discovered. Because I'm sharing the screen, but usually when you click on this, it'll tell you what it's pulling from. Well, let's do it. So when you're creating something from Data Studio, and so let me go back. So this is just a blank report. It'll ask you, where you want to pull your data from. And so that Google form and that Google sheet, which is my practicum, I would pull that. And so it would look for the information here. And then I'd set it up to where, I'm looking at different graphics for different things. And I could spend more time on that. I could come back and do that. Okay. Let's see. But I wanted to, and I don't know why it's not showing, but usually if you're clicking on one of these templates here, it'll actually show you what data you're using. So that is something we can look at. The other, let's see. The other probably the last item I'll share with you. It's just, like I said, I do a lot with the Google Forms. See if there's something that I could show. Some of the so Google Sheets, let's see. So Google Sheets, and I'll try to create something really quickly from scratch. Has a lot of resources that I think are user friendly in terms of just grabbing information quickly. So if I wanted to, let's just see, name, grade, loves reading, loves math. And then if I wanted to create something, let's just say John. Fourth, sixth, second. Now, if I wanted to just kind of just do something, there is a piece here that's called data validation. And if I wanted to do a couple things, I could click on data validation. If I wanted to just do a simple checkbox, click here, checkbox, data validation. And then John in fourth grade loves reading, yes or no? It could be yes. Anne loves reading, no, but loves math. Same thing here. So just a quick check box in terms of these students. If I wanted to do, and sorry, this is an abbreviated version, but if I wanted to, because I also look at pivot tables. And if you're familiar with pivot tables in Excel, it's another way to disaggregate data pretty quickly and give you more information. So here's some data. It's not a lot of data, so I'm not sure if it'll work, but just when you look at a pivot table, I could say, you know, I want to create a new sheet looking at this data. And so the rows that I had will be based on, so do I want to look at how many have a love for reading, true or false? So that's those are the rows that I'm creating. Then I want to know, I don't know, maybe it could be the name of the students, if they have a love for reading. And then the value could be what information you want to pull. So let's just say that could be name as well. So see here where it'll actually then populate. So of the 3 students, it actually shows me, you know, who had a love for reading if I wanted to do it that way. Because it's only a few, a couple pieces of data, you could do that on that first sheet. But if it was a lot of data, the pivot table usually just helps you disaggregate it a little bit more and really breaks it down for you. Then you could create graphs and so forth. So again, it just pulls from this information. I had 3 students. Then I wanted to look at this. Here's one of the things I did do last, at the end of the semester. I actually used this because I actually wanted to look at how many students in my class got specific grades. So if you're if you're interested in that, you want to see how many of your students got A's at the end of the semester, how many students got A's actually on an assessment. If you kind of wanted to keep track of that, that is something simple that you could do. So again, using Google Sheets really, I think, is a good resource for that. Going back to that form that I use, you could probably also do a pivot table using that practicum form if you wanted to. The reason I use Data Studio is because it was more than just numbers. I actually wanted to see the information and the journal information that they were compiling. Okay. So that is, does anybody have any questions for me? Hopefully this was helpful. Again, I don't know if I'm an expert, but I dig in and I like data quite a bit. And my goal simply is just finding different ways of using it. And like I said, I combine a lot of things. I still use Microsoft Word. I do still think it's the flagship, but I am able to combine that with Google, with the Google applications, just in terms of collaboration and really being able to share that information and edit with others. So again, hopefully this was helpful for everyone.
Thank you so much, Tim. Everybody give him a round of applause for all of his contributions for us today. So thank you. And I'm sure if we have other questions, you'll be hearing from us.
Sure. Yeah, and like I said, I'll be more than happy to share the practical form. So just remind me, and I'll send that out. So I'll get that to you.
And if you send that to me, then I can send it out to everybody in our COP, so they have access to that. And then I included, because I had mentioned that I made one for observation class, I actually just posted it up on the ECE Faculty Collective website for observations. So if you want to see what my form looks like, it's up there. And I thought we would spend the rest of the time, if anybody wants to share any technology that they're finding works really well for them in class that they want to share, if there is anyone that has a call out going, how the heck do I do this? And we could possibly support you, because I'm sure we all have some tips and tricks that other people aren't aware of. And then I also, if you had any ideas for future coffee chat topics that you want support in, go ahead and put that in the chat box, and we can think about planning future coffee talks. Did I just throw a bunch at you? Is anybody using Google in their classrooms or with their students, and how are you using it?
I'm learning Google as a parent right now more than I am as a community college person. But as having two kids that are just starting high school, this was like a lifesaver for me, because there's so many things they say and do that it's like they're faster than I can even comprehend. So having the chance to sit and go through it today was incredibly helpful for me. And I know I'll use it within teacher preparation. I just really haven't utilized it to its full capacity yet.
Anyone else using it in classes or other technology that they're finding is really cool that they want to share?
Let's see. Hi.
Hi, Patty.
I can share one thing that I experienced, and I'd like to try it in class. It was a class that gave the students, this class that I attended, they gave students a little bit of time to think about this. But at closing, after they kind of gone through a process, let's say you're talking about feelings about being a student teacher or something of that sort, and then maybe zeroing in on 3 or 4 words. In the chat box, the person had people put in those words just randomly, so all the class members. And as the words were put in, she read them. Let's say apprehensive, excited, and it became like a poem. And it was a nice wrap up for all the people that were there. It was another participatory thing that's, you know, we don't get a lot of those chances in the Zoom format. And so I want to try it. I'll have to figure out, but she built it very interestingly, so it was easy. And if someone put one word in and then came up with more words, they could throw those in. But it was just 2 or 3 words, and then it was just immediately read as they were poured in. So that was just a little thing I experienced that I enjoyed. But I do have a question if anyone has any expertise in breakout rooms for Zoom. And I don't know if you want to go to that topic this time or another time, but that's where I want to learn more about is breakout rooms in Zoom.
Well, I can help you as much as I can, and I'm sure others here are much stronger experts than I am, but what are your questions, or what kind of support do you want in that?
I guess I need to train myself in the how-to, but just effective use of time apart, visiting I think there's ability to visit different rooms. Let's say you had 4 groups of 8. How did you go into the rooms and effectively have those moments? How did you have the rooms not too long or not too short? Any tips if anyone's used it effectively?
I've used it.
Rachel, does that sound
I've
like
used
another
breakout rooms. Oh, go ahead.
copy chat?
Oh, hold on. Tim was saying something, Deanna. What were you saying, Tim?
I was just going to say, is that another copy chat topic?
We could do that.
Totally. Okay. But Tim, you were saying how you've used it?
I've used it a lot. So we actually, last Monday for my staff, we had to do an all-day PD from 8 to 4. So breakout rooms were a part of the professional development day. And so here was the key. I actually set up, if people are not in Zoom already, you do have to set them up when they're there. So setting them up, designing the room. So let's just say that you want to have 4 rooms, and then you can do a couple things. You can specifically assign people to rooms, or you can let Zoom randomly select them, and go that way. Then you can also look at the times. And you know what? If it's your first time, I actually, just because if you're new to it, I would not do anything longer than 15 minutes in terms of the Zoom, because I think that's enough time in terms of having whatever discussions you need. So I set those parameters, and then as you get used to it and you decide that there's some more things you want them to do in a breakout room, then you can extend the time. You can also extend the time while breakout rooms are going. So as you're checking into breakouts, and you find that, you know what, each group needs a little bit more time, you can always extend the time in a breakout room. So I find start with a shorter bit of time, give them directions before in terms of what it is you're asking them to do so that they're clear. I think it's important to designate maybe like a group lead to help lead those discussions, and you can design that however you'd like. But then, like I said, when you start off with 10, 15 minutes, it keeps people from, saying what they need to say, and then they're just sitting there. So you would keep them engaged. That's how I've used it. And then I check in, so I can go from each group, one group to another within that time. So if you have 4 groups, it's easy to kind of move in. You spend just a few minutes checking in, listening to the conversations, and then you can move on to the next group. So, that's how I've used it. Hopefully that helps.
I've used breakout rooms a lot also, and I agree with everything Tim is saying. I use them pretty much the same way. I usually begin with a random sorting of the breakout rooms so that the students get to meet with other students throughout the semester. Sometimes I have I have pre-grouped them. But one of the things that I've just, well, two things that I've discovered, students love them. I was very happily, I was happy to discover that they came back saying they really enjoyed the breakout rooms. So I use them pretty much every synchronous class. We'll do some breakouts. The other thing that I've discovered is that it's important for me not to spend all my time visiting the groups, because sometimes students get inadvertently kicked out of their group. They come back to the main room, and so you want to be there so that you can put them back into their group. They'll just pop in and say, oh, I don't know what happened. I just got kicked out of my breakout room. And then there is a place for you to put them back into their group. So I always do make sure that they know the number of the group that they're in, so that when they come out, they can tell me where they need to go. I've also sometimes taken a picture of my screen so that I know, if it's a random sorting, who is in each breakout room. And then I have that on my phone in case there's any confusion. But I love them and I use them regularly, and I highly recommend them.
And Patty, Arlene just posted a video on YouTube to help you kind of watch about how to navigate that. So thank you, Arlene, for that. And I'm going to post that up on the EC Faculty Collective, so you'll be able to go back and reference that as well.
Jan, thank you so much for that insight regarding the students being kicked out and needing to be in the main room for them. That is something that I actually hadn't thought about. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Students have, as we all know, difficulties with technology, and particularly if they're coming in on a cell phone or sometimes on an iPad. If they're on a mobile device like that, they sometimes lose connection. So we just want to be there to be really supportive and help them get back to their place of belonging and continue.
How long do you run your breakout rooms, Jan?
It depends on what the topic is, but I sometimes also break them up into a couple of sessions. So I'll start with one question that they're exploring together and maybe give them 10 minutes. And then they come back to the big group and do a little report out. And then I ask a second question and put them back in their group so that they can dive a little deeper into what the topic was. I think coming back to the main room and sharing with everyone the conversations also inspires some additional thoughts as they continue. So I'll often have a group project divided into 2 or 3 questions. And between each question, I have them come back into the full class and we do a little bit of discussion. So I think 10 to 15 minutes is really enough if you're breaking it down. I haven't done anything longer because it seems to work and the students like it, and then they like coming back to the rest of the class and having some reporting out.
I tend to like to jump between the breakout rooms. So I can eavesdrop in on what they're saying, kind of like what we're doing in class when we're in class, moving around to the different groups. But I do regularly jump back and check to make sure that nobody's hanging out or got knocked off or anything. And I use, there's a way that you can let students know how much time they have left, which announces to students. So you can type in an announcement. It doesn't last very long on their screen. But usually somebody in the group catches that and they'll be like, oh, we only have 5 more minutes left. And I make sure that I do that pretty regularly when we're coming close to the end of the conversation so they can see that.
And the default is 1 minute. So they will always get a default reminder that in 1 minute they're coming back to the main group.
Yeah. There's other items here. Yeah.
Does that help, Patty? And if you want, I'm happy to stay on and I can have you I can show you how to actually navigate some of this stuff. So anything anyone else wants to chat about, talk about? Do we all start school, or are we starting in the next couple of weeks? If you'd like, I can, in the last few minutes, I'd be happy to show you some of the things I've added to the EC Faculty Collective for people. Because I've added some things up there that I thought, so if I talk to myself, that's okay, or if you're here, that's okay too. So I've made a couple of slight adjustments with how the website's set up to reduce the amount of stuff on one page. So on the home page, you can click on the home page, or you can go and find resources for these pretty hot topics right now. I've also broken up early childhood classes and education classes. The education classes have not been developed yet. That's something that we're going to be working on with the EDU group. I've recently found some examples of different rubrics. So I've been putting those up here. So if that's something that's helpful for you, those are there. Under the ZTC OER, I've just started including links to the coffee chats. So the Flip Grid coffee chat is here, and I'm going to include the one from today here. And then there's, for the ZTC and OER, I've been including some more articles. I found a really couple of nice tutorials on how to distance teach, and they have a bunch of different resources available for you. So those are there. I've also included some tools. I've started using Canva for some of my classes and how I set it up online. So I've included some information there. I found a really good resource that had all different sorts of slides, interactive slides that I added. In the video library section, we were just introduced to Access. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's a nationwide higher ed early childhood faculty group. And they spent the summer developing this beautiful spreadsheet of all of these amazing videos to be used in observation classes. And it has like the time and even the recommendation of which classes you might want to consider using that in. So we added that there. On the training section, we've added a calendar of events. So you're going to be able to see what's coming up. And then under websites, oh, hold on, I just redid this. And things got moved a little bit. Oh no, it wasn't there. So then under the other big major move was that we have people who've contributed a few things for additional topics. So I've sorted them over here in the additional topics. So it wasn't this massive list of resources. But if you have anything that you're interested in wanting to contribute, we are definitely looking for more resources. I said today that I put my journal up. So under courses, under early childhood courses, I put my copy of the, for observation and assessment class, I put the example, the journal that I'll be using with my students here. So you can see an example of what I did, if that's a resource that is helpful to you. So those are some of the changes that have been made to the website. We've been adding more pretty regularly. Renee had shared at another meeting this distance education group on Facebook that has blown up. It went from like 11 people to 30,000 people, and they're distance educators across all age groups. And so they've actually been sharing a lot of really great resources. So when I've seen things that work for higher ed, I've been adding them up here. And I see people are chatting. Oh, great. There's a couple of resources that people are sharing. I will definitely include those on the website. Thank you, Arlene. So, if there isn't anything else, I'm happy to hang out, but we're officially, it's distance. Hold on, let me pull it up. Jody asked what's the name of the Facebook group? Let me get it. It's Distance Learning Educators. And they have all sorts of subgroups depending on specific interest topics. But they've been having a lot of really good resources that people are sharing. Okay. Very cool. So thank you everybody for attending today. I'll officially end the recording.